How do you feel about dropping this Margots record?
I'm super excited for it.
I'm going to pull up the track listing.
Yeah, pull it up.
Let's see. Yeah. So it's coming out on March 23rd, 24th, and pulling it up. All right. So we started the Margots in, I want to say 2020, right? Because we were recording at the Loft in Boyle Heights. Yeah. And we started trading demos back and forth because we heard your voice on a Thomas Rhett song. What was
Adam and I came out to the place, to the old studio, and I had I can't remember the name of the Thomas Rhett song now, but I had two of them like just locked and loaded, ready to go. I airdropped you like the files, and the Thomas Rhett song like popped off right away. We finished the song in like 4 hours for Thomas Rhett, and I did backup vocals on it, on like the chorus or bridge or something. And that layout or that formula of like building a song is what kind of turned into like how we built the first couple Margots songs. But it was shortly after that hangout where we were writing that song. You hit me up, or Mo hit me up like a week or two later to see if I was down to like sing or be the like front man of a new project, which was crazy to me because I always thought of myself as a bass player. To that point, I've only played bass in other bands. I'd never like really been the singer-songwriter since high school. So it was exciting, but it was fun to do something different. So that's what kind of reeled me in, is just knowing that you were gonna kind of help steer it and help write the lyrics and stuff. So that's what kicked it off, was definitely those Thomas Rhett sessions.
Yeah, because for me it's so hard to produce cool rock music. Like, rock is such a broad genre that it could mean so many different things to so many different people, that anytime I hear guitars, drums, bass, and a vocal that sounds like rock music, I get really excited, because I'm like, it's hard to make cool rock music. Like, a lot of people, I think, try to avoid it. And so when we were doing that Thomas Rhett song, it was like, oh, there's a voice here. We have to make music for this voice, because you don't find a lot of voices that work for the genre. And I think once we started writing for your voice in particular, we started like dissecting kind of how we want to build the foundation around your voice. And I think the first Margot song was Willow Springs, right? And that was...
Well, there was Shangri-La was the first one.
Oh, yeah.
And I ended up hating it at one point, and we scrapped it. And then Willow Springs came right after that.
Yeah, like Shangri-La is a perfect example of a song that struggled because it was too broad category rock. It didn't have like enough of a perspective. So then we chopped it up and we made it a TBC song where it had like more electronic elements to kind of like tone down the rockiness of it.
Yeah.
So Willow Springs was the first one where you and I both went, oh, this is the sound we want to make. And I think, I mean, you have the guitar. You want to play the shapes that we were inspired by?
Yeah, it's instead of like, I'm not going to play a G, I'm always going to like do the bar chord version. Here, let me bring it up so you can see it. It's never going to be the regular G shape. It's going to be this. But then I'm always like just lifting over here, and there's the Margots. It's that one. There it is. And then throw in one of these. Like that's all over the Margots stuff, not just on Willow Springs, but I'm going to sneak that in everywhere. Like, that's what I feel like is the most inspiring thing for this. It's all in there.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not something that comes to me naturally, but when I hear it with your voice, it fits so well. It's like, because your voice, it adds like a characteristic to those chords that just like locks in, So then I think we had those And then we had the chords. Then I just started really just like adding little flourishes around it to try and like introduce other weird harmonies and stuff with the electric. And then we had a drummer in the past named Graham, who is kind of an on and off Margots. You guys probably will never see him, never meet him.
Hates camera stuff.
He hates cameras.
Doesn't play live.
He doesn't play live.
Yeah, weird like bedroom kind of like garage band player, you know, like he's not really coming out and doing stuff, but he's great for what he does. He played on Willow Springs and on Roll On.
Yeah.
But the cool thing, there's some like drum fills that Graham does in those that like I would not think a normal human would try to do. Like it's something robotic about it, but something really vibey at the same time. So the drums and the acoustic is what started that song. And then
kind of your and Graham's relationship by outsiders could kind of be viewed as tumultuous, but there's a beautiful chemistry when you two get together in the room.
Yeah.
It's like your acoustic and Graham's drum sound is kind of like, it's like it's like Paul McCartney and like John Lennon, you know. It's like you guys will always be tethered together somehow.
It's weird. He's really good in those like mid-tempo rock songs, which is like where those two landed. But
he's a mid-tempo drummer. I think that's on like, didn't he do like business cards, and you told him like musicians don't really do business cards, and he insisted, and he was like, it's like in quotes, it's like the best damn mid-tempo drummer you'll ever meet or something like that.
It doesn't play too fast, doesn't play too slow. It keeps it right in the middle.
He's a song drummer, he likes to say. But he does go crazy with the fills. That's what's funny.
Fill meter maximized. Oh man, but yeah, the bass on those two is what Willow Springs and Roll On. Those are my favorite bass moments in there. Well, no, Reno's pretty fun too.
Oh yeah,
that's the other thing we realized. Like Margots is that vibe, like with those chord choices, but then it's also like a lot of hooky bass lines. Like that's the other things. Like if you're listening to like Zeppelin or something, it's going to be the hooky guitars, and we're doing like that, but on bass. The bass is like the lead bass in this band.
Yeah, like we don't really start a song. It feels like unless we have like a great acoustic riff from you or like a great bass riff from you, it feels like it kind of needs those two things to feel Margots, you know, like I
think that's what we found with like the rock formula too, though, is like there needs to be a riff, and then this is balance, and this is what makes it hard for a lot of people too, is you can't take yourself too seriously, but you have to be kind of cocky at the same time. And that's where I feel like I fit in well, because I'm not a great singer, but I can be confident enough in how I'll deliver a line or something, and that's maybe a part of the balance that helps these songs work out really well.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like in rock, there's a line where if you're singing too well, it can start to kind of move into like kind of like post Britpop, like Coldplay, or like what's that other band, the one about snow or something, Snow Patrol. Man, so it's like the difference between like Blur and like Snow Patrol. It's like once you start singing too well, it becomes a little too like precious sounding, you know? So I think,
or even like if we go back in time, like listening like we're in the 70s or something, and it's like Zeppelin or like Queen. Or like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like there's gonna be a pop element.
Yeah,
to
you're
it
gonna
when
end
the
up
singer's
getting
really good.
That label of pop, which I think we're trying to avoid as much as possible. So yeah, I love your voice, and like finding singers who have a like character to their voice is really hard to do. And as a producer, like I'm always looking for singers where you hear it and you're like, it's a formed voice. Now all we need to do is like write songs that we're excited about. And so it's like, I feel like we've even like we kind of get like molecular with it occasionally, where we'll like, even today we were talking about like the key, the scale, what's the top range for you. And I think it's like, it's something that can happen organically, and it has, like for Roll On and Willow Springs. But then it's like, as quickly as those songs come, the other songs just take us so much longer, because it's like we're trying to quote unquote capture magic is so difficult to do. It's obvious. It's like so much easier to just open the hood and be like, let's just look and see what's in here. Like we could try and capture magic all day, but I think it's more fun in the long run when we actually have conversations about why we like something. And like, then we both kind of know what tools we're using. It's like, oh, this ratchet works so much better than this wrench or whatever. It's like we kind of start to figure out where we like to land. So we have Willow Springs. That's the first song. Then we got Roll On. So Roll On, you kind of mentioned. We have your amazing bass riff, which is like in the key of E, but it sounds like it's in D to me for some reason. Like I don't
even know what key it's in.
I think
I'm the worst at that.
I think
like,
it's
I just
an
play
E.
stuff, and maybe I'm playing chords out of the key or something. It's yes. So there's your E shape. So anyone who knows music theory, like where is it? Is this his E?
Yeah, I think it's a.
I'm just modulating the same chord or something. I don't know.
I think it's based around E major. Yeah. Yeah. It's got that like 60s kind of like Monkees, like Beatlesy kind of like feel when you just play it fast, but when you play it slow, it has that kind of like psychedelic. Yeah. Kind of.
It's that shuffle drums.
Yeah.
Graham's got the good shuffle, the mid-tempo for Graham.
Yeah, Graham, the mid-tempo
and then
king.
the bass with all the overdrive on it.
Yeah.
And your guitar stuff came out sick. And then one thing that I wasn't expecting is we're putting that song together, there was like the early versions of it, and then you sent back a mix that like all of a sudden there's like this choir sound.
Oh yeah, that's me and Mo.
If you and Mo turned into like a 20-piece choir or something.
Yeah.
Epic outro.
So we're obviously an American band, but we love the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin and all that. So that was kind of like a nod to like Rolling Stones and stuff, where it's like, like what if there was like a choir, like a choral choir singing behind Brandon? And I think it works, but it's like one of those ideas that's just better to record and do and send than to like try and pitch it, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad you did it. I think another thing, as I'm thinking about what has made like the Margots songs like work, is that we're really diving into like a story or in a visual aesthetic that takes us on like a trip. Like every song is a journey somewhere. So Roll On, we're thinking like, okay, like old, like chateau and like spooky kind of like head rolling on the floor. Yeah. You let me draw the single cover for that one, and I had a lot of fun. It's like I drew my head like rolling or spinning. Yeah. It's like that kind of visual though is like what guided the song to what it sounds like for us. And then with going back to Willow Springs, it's like, okay, dusty desert road. Willow Springs is a raceway out in the desert, and we're just thinking of like that kind of dusty old like 70s car, muscle car aesthetic, or like a 60s Mustang cruising. So that part I have a lot of fun writing when I'm putting myself in some other universe. Exactly. And it's telling stories in these universes that we build. Yeah, because it's like we're there somewhere in the song, but probably the true self is an observer. It's like even Reno, it's like I had a friend who was moving and he was either getting ready to retire or getting ready to go into the craziest stage of his life. So he was telling me like, yeah, we're selling all our furniture. It's getting too expensive in California. We're going to go out to Reno. We're going to, do our thing out there. And plus I'm going to be closer to the horses. And I was like, what does that mean? What do you mean closer to the horses? He was like, well, I bet on horses, so it'll be easier to get to the racetrack every day. And I'm just there. I'll just be closer to Reno. I'm like, oh, so you're not taking it easy. You're going to go all in on the horses in Reno. So that's how a lot of our songwriting conversations start, is it's like, I read something or I watched a documentary where I'm like, oh, Brandon, I just watched this thing where like,
John Lennon was stalked by this Vietnam veteran, and it kind of reminds me of the lyrics that I was writing the other day. So what if we kind of have that? Or I even think that like sometimes the idea, the like concept comes after the song's written. It's like I'm just writing lyrics that I either think I'm going to use for rather than the Roxy's, or then Brandon hears it and says, like, I think on that one was Fuzzy, you were like, no, this should be a Margot song. So then it's like, okay, what am I talking about? Because now that there's another writer, I need to be able to explain my words. So in that case, it was like we were watching a John Lennon documentary and seeing how he dealt with like the fame and kind of the paranoia of the 60s. And it's like, oh, dude, that's what Fuzzy's about. And that informs kind of the art and the titles and kind of how we market the song, because now we kind of know what I was talking about. Or sometimes, I don't know, it's like you never know how a story concept for a lyric is going to line up with your real life or line up with someone you met or something you saw, something you read. So it's like we try to be like satellites, like pinging and picking up frequencies. And the more we talk about the Margos, the more we can identify, I think, when something is a Margos concept. You know, you're like out in the real world hearing conversations and like meeting people. And you're like, oh, this is a Margos. Yeah. This is a Margot song.
Something that you said in the beginning of that I love a lot, and this is advice for anyone that's like trying to get more ideas or just have stories to tell, is you meet people all the time and you have to like just dig in. Like you meet this guy who's moving out and it's like, okay, I'm selling everything, it's too expensive, but that could be the end of the conversation. But you just ask like tell me more, like why are you moving around? And then that opens up the door to some crazy story or conversation. I met a guy at work. This is a whole other story like that I just remember right now. This might turn into a Margot song. I met this guy at work and he's wearing a shirt that had like a buff humanoid shark with a flat top haircut. And the guy's in his like, he's 85 or something like that, or a little bit older. And I asked him, I was like, hey man, like I just got to ask, what's up with the shirt? And he's like, this, that was me in my heyday. It's like, the shark? Like, what? And it says Russian land shark on it. It's like, the shark that was you? What is it, like a military thing? He's like, I was undefeated in street fighting from 1955 to 1966. It's like, whoa, like, that's crazy, man. Yeah, I could still do it now. And he's like, opens it up. And then he went from like being this like kind of stoic person to he was so excited to just tell his story to me. People love to talk about themselves. And you just got to open the door and it'll bring you joy. It'll bring you laughter. It's going to make them happy. And then you're going to have stories to tell afterwards. Yeah. So we got more lyrics.
And it's like songwriters, we're, I think, often marketed as like the character or the actor or the on-camera presence, but we're more like journalists or like photographers or painters. It's like we're inspired by stuff. We write it. Yes, when we perform, we kind of embody the character, or the character infuses with our real selves. You know, like you kind of certain stuff sticks to you, but like, yeah, so much of it is like meeting people and asking questions and being interested in the conversations that might make other people uncomfortable. Like someone's like you have to fight the urge to want to avoid awkwardness, you know? So it's like, because sometimes the best like ideas come from when you're in an uncomfortable environment, you know, like in a town you've never been in, talking to someone you will never see again, you know, that's usually where you get the really interesting stories. And they kind of leave like a mark in your brain. And then it's like when you're writing, it's like, oh, I remember this guy, you know? Yeah. And then as a producer, it's kind of my job to like figure out how we make that part cohesive with how you sing, how you deliver it, how we sound. And it's like, so there's this like process of onboarding the weird characters and like being like, okay, new weird character for a song. Meet everyone else, you know, this is kind of how we all behave in a Margot song, you know. We're not going to say the full story because it might be too out there, but we're going to like work you into the song. You know, it's like kind of like bringing those stories in and then we slowly like massage them into like it fits, you know. So
that's something I think is really cool with Margots too. Is like I wish we had an endless budget and could just do full on music videos that told these stories, because we'd hire actors and everything,
Totally.
like really like embody these characters that we're living through. So I mean, hopefully we'll get to see that in another way, you know, like and these songs I feel like are all telling really just vivid stories every single time. So it's fun.
Yeah,
it's a lot of
totally.
fun to put together.
So like, what else do we have on here? So we have Fuzzy. We kind of hit Fuzzy. We hit Reno. So Blurry, I've Been Wrong, Coastal. Those are like more songs where it's like kind of building them by trading files back and forth. Like Blurry started as, I think you had acoustic, you had bass, and then I did some like kind of like psychedelic guitar stuff, and then I tracked the drums in the garage, and then we kind of like formed that one remotely mostly. I feel like I don't even know.
Blurry was definitely back and forth, and you did a lot to it. When I wrote it, there's like an intro thing that ended up getting like shuffled around and like added in different spots. So that was, out of all of them, I think the most I don't know how to say it, but it was the most like cut together, like from the original idea.
Yeah, because there's like the B section,
were more structured at the beginning.
Like the B section, we did like Mellotron piano and stuff like that.
I might have only given you just like an A and a B section, and then you sent me back an arrangement off of that with an extra section in there. And then it like built from there.
Yeah, that one. That one was kind of inspired by like Darjeeling Limited on my end. Have you seen Darjeeling?
I love that movie.
So good. Yeah, there's just like a lot of cool like acoustic based. It's like I'm discovering as I like dive into like more of like what is genre, subgenre styles and stuff, and like folk rock seems to be the label that like I really like, where if you throw that with like psychedelic kind of chords or 60s kind of inspired stuff, you get like a lot of cool timeless sounding stuff. And I think the Kinks do that really well, like Byrds, like Buffy St. Marie. And so I think we were kind of going for that like Wes Anderson, Darjeeling Limited, like folk rock, like, because you kind of need to be reminded as an artist that like you don't always need the loudest song or the heaviest song or the catchiest song. It's like sometimes it's just like staying out of the way. And I think like that's what Neil Young, folk rock, Tom Waits, people like that, where it's like I'm really inspired by how they can do so much with like a simple arrangement. And so when I'm chopping stuff kind of like in the studio, I'm usually trying to figure out like what's the bare minimum we can do for this song to where it conveys what we want to convey. It's accessible, but it's not overreaching or overstaying its welcome, you know? So
like Blurry Blurry is hits so hard, and it's really just drums and acoustic. And there's a bass in there, and there's a couple other things, but really like if you took all that out, it would still hit hard with just the drums and the acoustic the way it's in there. And you don't need, and you have a sick like fuzz thing at the end, like that fuzz tone at the end of that song. That's like the only time there's a guitar in the thing, but there's this outro fuzz where it sounds like you're ripping a speaker in half. But it's not like a huge like power chord like taking over everything. It's like just sneaks in. What pedal did you use?
I used I cranked the Vintech, which is like the Neve kind of clone thing, but like cranked that, then ran it through I want to say like an LA2A Universal Audio Gray, like cranking the gain, and then like I just turned down the volume of the fader, so that way like obviously coming out of my speakers isn't blaring, but like I'll use that, or I'll use the Fairchild compressor, so it's there's no distortion pedal or fuzz pedal. It's crazy. Just like analog emulation or real analog gear being driven to the point where it's like it's so fuzzed that it's clean. It's like it turns
so
into
like
fuzzy.
A square wave synth.
Yeah. It's like so fuzzy that there's not a lot of sustain to it. There's not a lot of like, it's just like a pokey note, you know?
Yeah.
I've always found that like for fuzz sounds, I usually have a lot of fun when I'm using like a compressor to create the fuzz or a preamp. But usually it's a compressor because the compressors kind of have like the analog emulated ones at least kind of have like that by design in there. Like it's designed to be able to crank and create something unique. I also could have used the tape simulation by UA. I'll use their, I think it's called the A800, but like if you do the input all the way in and the output back and then play with the bias control, that's usually where you could get some of those weird fuzzies. So that's probably what I did.
It sounds like something though you probably did like one take and then you're like, it's tight, all right. And then it's like you forget what you even did to get there.
Yeah, totally.
But that's fun too. Like so we're looking at like, okay, this person's like going to Reno. So one of the whispers is me whisper reading directions from a taco shop in LA that we went to the horse tracks in Reno. Another one of the whisper tracks is me just like looking online and like talking about different horse breeds and like which ones I like better for racing. And then the third track is just talking about like how I'm gonna gamble with like, or like which types of races I'm gonna go in on, like what length of a race and stuff like that. So it's even that is just like these three different like things. Like the character in the song is leaving everything, he's on his way there, that's all he's thinking about. So it's like in mind kind of racing and like thinking of all these different things. And musically it also has this like kind of chaotic, dazed and like you're losing your mind. And then we bring it back into that last chorus. It's like snaps back in and we're out. So all of that stuff is super intentional. Nothing's by accident.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we kind of get inspired by each other's ideas. So it's like I was inspired by your vocal performance and the guitars that we added, and then I did the drums. Then you were inspired to play the bass over it. Then we redid the bass, and then I probably mixed it a bunch, and then you again threw in those extra overdubs. And
yeah, that's huge. So like when I'm recording stuff at home or in my setup, I don't add any plugins. Everything that I send is just I try to get it sounding as good as I can direct in through my preamp or amp or whatever pedals I'm using, and I give it to as flat as, but my vocal takes are so flat. And then your mix always, like, you're gonna do some little mini mix to it, and I'm so pumped up afterwards, like, oh, now I got more ideas. Like that opened up so many more possibilities. So then I'm like begging you to like send me back that so I can like keep going with this, because my version kind of sucks. Like I love where it's at though.
Yeah, no, it's like a good relationship, because it's like it's always fun to get files from you and then start to play with it and shape it, and then we're slowly it's like we're cooking a meal together. It's like I kind of call it like avoiding sriracha mixes, where it's like we're gently seasoning as we go, and then by the end it's like it's ready to serve, and so it's fun to like slowly season together. And then that could mean lyric changes, that could mean like melody changes. We end up evolving the whole thing kind of all at once, because the mix might give it a new perspective, the new bass might give it a new perspective, and like we kind of react together and go, oh, it kind of sounds like you're saying this at this part, what if we said that? It's like we shape it as we go, which is fun. And it'll be cool to see what we do for the next record, because now we kind of have this proof of concept where it's like, all right, we made it to the finish line, we got the songs done, now we have all the lessons we learned along the way. So we'll see if Graham calls us back, or if it mainly becomes me and Dan filling in for Graham. But Graham, if you're watching, we appreciate all your contributions to this record. Keep doing the business cards. Don't listen to Brandon. Like, laminate them.
I think if we're trying to, like, this next record is going to start when me, you, and Graham like go on a road trip, and then when we get back, we'll have all the stories we need to tell for the next record. Yeah, I mean, Graham is always running some kind of scheme. I think he's hard into crypto right now, so it's like we just have to, in his own time, Graham will work his way back to music, but he's probably on a yacht somewhere right now, like with his dad, doing the Graham thing. So. Oh my God. Good Lord.
Well,
all right.
We'll talk to you guys later.
See ya.